Hi. So I years ago bought a couple golf clubs from a thrift store, and didn't like how they looked, but they were just cheap and whatever. So I spray painted them. I spray painted them this kind of sparkly reddish color that kind of turns a little yellow in the sun, gold fleck. But didn't do that good of a job. Turns out, a few years later, I became a powder coater, and I want to show you how I was able to turn an old thrift store golf club through powder coating that looks like this into something that looks like this. So this is the 5-wood, the other one is the driver. This is a two-tone, or not two-tone, but a two-coat. It has a base of white and a top of teal, a translucent top coat of teal. I'm going to show you how I did that by doing it to the driver. I'm going to start by sanding off this really bad spray paint, and we'll go from there. Sorry, I was using 320 grit, but I'm going to swap it to a 180 grit, see if it's a little more aggressive. You can see all these scratches. I guess not dents. Luckily, there's no dents. There's a bunch of little indents. You can see that. Those are big old scratches from people mishitting, probably me, the ball. Anyways, keep going. So I've got this bench vise holder that holds onto the shaft of the club. This might make it a little easier to get on these smaller areas. I can get two hands on it. I don't know if I can get my camera in a good spot for it. Let's see. I'm sorry for the mess in the shop. There we are. It's my vacuum back there. All right, so as you can see, yeah, most of it off. I didn't get around the, I think it's called the hosel area, or in these, I can see that, in these inset areas, recessed areas. I'm gonna use some aircraft stripper, or aircraft remover, paint stripper, and get that in there to see if I can get that to come off. All right. Try not to get this stuff on you. If you do, just wash it off. I've never left it on myself to get burnt, but put it on kind of thick. Try to get it in those grooves. I used to use a paintbrush, but it dissolved my paintbrush. I found that I can just use a paper towel pretty good. You can already see it's starting to pull it out a little bit. See, I don't know if you can see that color bleeding through. And just let it rest. We'll come back in about 20 minutes, see, get that off the shaft. Come back in about 20 minutes and see how it worked. In the meantime, this is what I've been powder coating today. Sorry, using a gimbal, I'm getting used to it. So, powder coated for a client today, a bunch of this gray stuff. Normally they have their stuff in white, but they just want a gray for this specific batch. It's Ford Avalanche Gray, kind of fun. All right, it's been about 20 minutes and it looks like things have started to happen. So I'm going to go to the sink and scrub it with a scrub brush. I don't know if I can get that on video. I'll see if I can. All right, so got it out gas, it's hanging. I think we're gonna spray this one gold, see how it turns out. We're gonna spray it on the face here, and then I'll wipe it off. Wet racking. Alright, so I found kind of a cover on it, so that's why it barely moist. See here. Nice and gold. All right, we're gonna put it in the oven and see how it comes out. All right, so the Coating came out great, except for you can see. Oh, there's actually a couple more that you can see on camera that I can see with my eye. A couple little looks like outgassing spots there, and then there was these two on the back. I thought I had outgassed it properly, so I'm going to sand these down and recoat.
maybe I'll just use some black paint on it or something. I'm not trying to spend too much time on this. I do have a lot of other work to do. This is more of just, let's see how it turn out. See how it turn out. It's just more of kind of fun. What I actually got going on is 3 full pallets of some gloss white. I'm going to be spraying with Tiger Bengal white. This is kind of just what I'm doing in the meantime. I'm waiting for other stuff to cure and cool off. So you can see that. That was really unfortunate. So I did outgas it. Maybe I just did it long enough. Maybe this is just pretty unfortunate aluminum it's close made out of. I think it's aluminum. It's light and it's non-magnetic, and it's definitely not stainless steel. So, very unfortunate. So this is my first YouTube video I've ever made. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a little nerve-wracking. I feel like I gotta be perfect. And yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm a little nervous. But I think I do cool stuff. I think it's pretty cool. I'm not trying to be like boastful about it, but everything from powder coating to that construction. I used to build cabinets. I worked at a cabinet shop for a few years. Learned a lot of random life skills there. I used to do flooring. While I was working at a cabinet shop, me and my little brothers, they're not grown men, but we started a company called Storm Brothers. And we started off contracting to a tech company. They built, I call it a tech company. I'm not from the tech world anymore. I do more mostly physical labor kind of stuff. But we started a company that specifically contracted out to them, helping them build and develop a thermal security camera. And so between me and my brothers, we became their production team, we became their shipping, we became their... We helped design their second model of the camera, and helped them work on a lot. So one of my brothers is actually still in charge of that side of the company. And while we were there doing their cameras, their fabricator could make all these big steel mounts, and you taking them to powder coated it. And I knew nothing about powder coating, but he got sick back in 2020 with COVID, and I had a little bit of welding experience just for real life. And they asked if I could fabricate some of the stuff while he was out. He's a little bit older, and it really took him out. And so I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. And so I was the fabricator for a couple of weeks, just a couple of weeks, but I had to get the stuff powder coated. So I take it to the coaters, and they were like 6 weeks out. And granted, I didn't really shop around for any of the coders, but 6 weeks out seemed a little ridiculous to me. And the reason, so it made me kind of worried that we wouldn't have our stuff for shipping it out, we wouldn't have the mounts ready. We had customers that were waiting on us that were They weren't it wasn't, okay, I say us, waiting on the other company that we were just contracting with. And we were trying to make everything as smooth and easy as possible, so I felt responsible for getting this stuff out the door as soon as possible. So I ended up calling one other powder coating company and asked if they could rush it for us, and they charged astronomical prices to rush it, which makes sense. And so we did that. And then I went to the CEO of that tech company and I said, hey, if I figure out how to powder coat, so that way I can get stuff out the door quicker for you, would you pay me to powder coat? And he was a little hesitant at first until I told him I used to do cabinets, I used to paint them, and so I had some type of painting skill, thinking that that's the right type of skill for powder coating. And it helped a little bit, it translates a little bit, but not too much. And he said, sure. And so with my electrical knowledge and engineering knowledge, I built a 6 foot by 6 foot oven that was 4 feet deep. Literally ran off GE oven heating elements, 4 of them. And so I ran that. It took about 2 weeks to build the oven because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. And then, yeah, so I started, and then I bought a really cheap, the $150 Eastwood powder coating unit and started powder coating by just learning everything I could off of YouTube. There's a few channels that really help, YouTube channels that really help me learn. There's Right Now Powder Coating. He's very, I think his name is Dan, but he's very hands-on and he's very open with his knowledge. And so I learned a lot from him. And then there's another channel, Unknown Powder Coating? Unknown Coats? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I still watch all of his stuff. I think he's actually used to be from YouTube. I think he's up in Washington. He's really fun. He's very technical. And he knows all the ins and outs. He's been doing it for 15 years. And so it's really nice watching him. And he's kind of a no-nonsense guy, which is nice. And so I learned a lot from him. And trial and error. I've messed up so many things learning how to code. And we figured it out. And I realized that cheap entry-level powder coating gun was for if you're just doing something in your garage as a hobbyist and you can't afford something big or don't want to, you don't need to. But I started doing a lot of powder coating and I needed something heavier duty and a little more adjustable because that thing only had 2 settings, high and low, as far as kilovolts go. And so I tried. I'm kind of a brand loyalist. I wouldn't say start liking a brand. I kind of stick with them. Most of my shop here reviews either DeWalt or Ryobi because so far I've never had a problem with my Ryobi. I've had problems with my DeWalts, and back at the cabinet shop I used to be in Milwaukee and I had plenty of problems with their stuff. Enjoyed it. It's just good. But with the Eastwood gun that I had, the cheap one, I decided to try their nicer version. It's $1,000 hot. I think it's called the Hot Coat series, and I used that for about a year. I loved it. That one had adjustable kilovolts from 100 down to 10, and got some good results with that. I started branching out and trying to find other clientele to powder coat for, and I did a bunch of wheels and ones in and out of wheels. That was nerve-wracking. And then I realized that I was making way more money powder coating than I was doing the electrical tech side of things. And so I consulted my business partners, my brothers. I said, I would like to do this full time. You think we could figure out how to open up a shop? And they said, of course. And so it took quite a while. We found a shop down in Provo, Utah that was being built. That would let us rent and put an oven in there. And took over a year to get that shop built out. And in that year, I got a nicer gun. I got a Electron box gun. And I started growing my skill more and more. All of my free time, I was just watching and consuming as much information as possible, and testing out. And luckily, with our fabricator at the tech shop, he had so much metal scrap that I was able to test and do a bunch of different things, and spent a lot of time just messing around with different codes and different settings on the guns, and 2 coding, 3 coding, 4 coding, and realizing that's always a pain in the butt. And so I learned a lot. I was very blessed to have that opportunity to learn while the shop was being built. And then we got into the shop, and I had to build a big oven because being a professional shop, I need to be able to coat big stuff. We were limited with space. I didn't have the money to afford, there's my motorcycle, to afford buying a commercial oven. And so I built the oven out of a shipping container. And so I got, it's got 16 feet of usable space. And here's my spray booth. Got some things hanging up, cooling off in there. But yeah, I learned a lot, and it's been going good. We've had this shop for just over a year now, and been really enjoying it. Also, I like to coat everything I can. This vise up here is an old Wilton vise I found in the trash. I fixed it up. It was missing a couple parts, so I fixed it up, and I decided to coat it. It's you know, I use it as a vise, so it's getting a little beat up now. But it's really pretty blue color. And then I designed this potential thing. I'll show that in another video maybe. But anyway, so that's just my quick little story. And this is how this turned out. Got it nice and smooth. Can't feel anything. Can't feel those bumps, those raised areas. I don't know how I'm going to sand it there. I might just leave it and try to clean it out as best I can. Sorry, in this area. So if I sand here, I'd worry that it would get thinner here, thicker there, and might cause something you can see well, or can see or feel. So if I leave that as is, and then maybe after I spray this next coat of gold, maybe I might spray black and just try to push black into this area, see what happens. Anyway, on to coating. All right, so I've got the Perfect. Back in again. All right, so it turned out pretty good. No outgassing bubbles or anything. Yeah, so now I'm gonna get some black powder, and I'm just going to put the powder in this area over here, that recessed area. And then I'll so this is only partially cured because I'm gonna do a clear coat. That's why it's a little shiny. So I'm gonna get the black in there, partially cure that, then I'm gonna spray it with the clear coat. All right, I guess I forgot to press the the record button on that last part. So I got the black. I actually ended up using, it's probably can't even tell. It's a purple. It's a really dark purple. The color is called Before the Storm. And so just put that in there. I didn't get it in the other areas just because I've had 2 coats of powder in there and it's hard for it to stay in there. So I figured it'd just be better if I just did that right there. And so once it cools down, so I just ready to pull this out real quick. And once it cools down, we'll spray clear and see how that goes. All right, so let's cool off. We're gonna spray it with, I thought I had the Columbia coatings clear, but this is good now. So I'm gonna spray it with this magic powder. All right, so this is how it turned out. Nice and glossy. Not the best inlay with the colors. You can see some thinner spots in there, but or with that dark. But I'm happy with it for something that I was just messing around with. Anyways, after I put the shaft back on, I'll give you an update. I'll show it to you. All right, so I'm not in love with how this turned out. I thought I was gonna like the gold a lot more. So I'm gonna strip the gold off. I've got a chemical stripper. I feel like I'm cheating a little bit with it since before I was using sandpaper and whatnot. But I'm gonna strip this and we're gonna choose a different color. So I ended up stripping off all the gold. I just didn't like the color very much. So we're back down to the aluminum. It's a little dirty. Just got to do a little bit of cleaning on it. And then we're gonna change up the color. I'll let you know when I pick one out. All right, so I actually ended up asking my daughter what color she thinks we should paint it. And I have this really pretty chartreuse color that I sprayed a set of wheels for my car with. And she picked that color. That's what it means. Grab a rag. Okay, let's do this. So I'm just taking the color off the face of it. Shape off of it. And I keep wiping my fingers off with this damn rag. So this reminds me, I did a set of wheels. So straight base, dark runs. Partially pure. Yes, straight, soft black. But it's sad black. The hard to get sink. So when I spray the fog here, it's not a good. Yes, you can see the snow. But with the wheels, so the fog here with us, it came out wonderful. Unfortunately, they weren't for a customer. They were an old set of wheels that I'd had for a car that my wife had previously sold. And was had it in the garage, so in the box, so it came to Iowa. And trying to sell them. So far, nobody can use it. Maybe better.
All right, so here it is after spraying and cooling off. I think it came out quite lovely. Get underneath it. Let's see how shiny it is. I guess I'll put it on the shaft, and beginning of next week we'll have to. There's a little indent right there. It's kind of annoying. A little spot in the middle. Anyways, so I'll put it on the shaft.